What's up, everybody? Chlorine King here. Thanks for tuning in for another video. So this video we're about to watch is a webinar that I did with Skimmer a little while back, and it's all about the benefits we offer our employees. Well, ironically, right during that time we're filming with Nikki from Skimmer, we were doing a major overhaul on our benefit package for our employees. So there's a lot I couldn't speak to because nothing was official yet, but we offer a lot more now to our employees than than the filming that video. We offer full health, vision, dental, life, all PPO plans, two paid weeks off, PTO, what else? Company gym membership, company cell phone, amongst other things. So just wanted you guys to know, if you notice some awkwardness in the video, that's just because I couldn't speak to anything because it wasn't official yet. So enjoy the webinar and we'll catch you next video.
All right, it's 1:05, so we'll go ahead and get started. Welcome, good morning or good afternoon, depending on where you are. My name is Nikki. I am with Skimmer. I do marketing stuffs, and I've got two really great panelists here today. We're covering labor, finding, measuring, and keeping top tech talent. So without further ado here, I'm going to introduce my panelists. We've got Eric Taylor joining us from Chlorine King. Eric,
how's it going, everyone?
Introduce yourself.
Yeah, my name's Eric. I own Chlorine King Pool Service here in Seminole, Florida. We have roughly 650 pools we take care of weekly, and I got plenty of employees, so I'm looking forward to helping you guys out today.
Great. And Bryce.
Yeah, I'm Bryce Sorine. I'm the owner of Beyond Pool Cleaning out in Scottsdale, Arizona. We've got about 400 weekly service accounts that we take care of, and quite a few employees. And in my previous career, I worked with a large restaurant chain, so I've literally hired thousands of people. So hopefully we can bring some insights to everybody else.
Yay, thanks for joining us, both of you. A few housekeeping items. So we will send a copy of this recording to everyone who registered after the fact. So if you have to go early, or if you can't come in late, or I guess you wouldn't be hearing this if you came in late, but we'll make sure we get a copy of this. We've got a great hiring guide that we'll talk about later that we'll also send you, and some other great resources that we'll send to you via email afterwards. If you want to communicate with us, please use the Q&A. Should be kind of at the bottom of your screen or top of your screen, depending on what platform you're on. You should be able to hover over and click that Q&A button. That will send the questions to all of us. Before we get started too, we'd like to just do a really quick poll. So first question on the poll: how do you typically find new employees? And we'll give you a few seconds to answer this, and understanding that some of you may use multiple methods, but pick your most common method. And our second question: why are you attending today's webinar? What are the important things for you that you would like us to focus on? And we have a ton of responses still pouring in, so I'll give you all a minute here. We'll give you about 10 more seconds to get your responses in. And we're going to close that poll. Interesting. So it looks like a majority of you, 57%, are using job posting sites like Indeed or Craigslist or some other job posting sites. 36% of you are relying on your network. This could include current, former employees, your friends, your family members. And 7% of you are using social media: Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. And why are you attending today's webinar? A vast majority of you looks like you want to know all the things: hiring, training, and retaining. And so that's great news. We've got a lot of great content. And unlike previous webinars that we've done, this is going to be sort of more conversational. We absolutely love your participation. So again, feel free to use that Q&A box to send us information, and we will convey that here live for you. Thank you for participating in that poll. All right. So quick shameless plug here at Skimmer. We are here to empower pool and spa service professionals with a platform to build great businesses. And it's not only the platform, but it's also resources like these webinars. We've done some recent webinars, one on cash flow. The one before we did that was a pretty popular one on how to raise your pool service rates. Bryce, you did a great job on that. Those are all posted on YouTube. And so if you're in back and looking at those, we highly encourage you to do so. What are we going to talk about today? Well, we are going to go through the state of the labor market, just a few slides on kind of some research that we found in putting this webinar together. And then we'll get into kind of the meat and potatoes with our great panelists here on finding and recruiting top performing techs, talking about how you measure and reward your best techs and how you retain your top talent. We have heard from tons of folks here and looking at the labor market and tons of our customers that labor continues to be the #1 issue facing companies of all sizes, really. And so that was the impetus behind putting this together, was based on your feedback. As a whole, if we look at the whole labor market, the research shows that staff shortages are impacting service-oriented construction and skilled trade businesses of all types. This is in construction, this is in manufacturing, plumbing, electrical work is still hard to come by in a lot of areas. And there's no doubt that all of those things have an impact on the pool industry. Interestingly, though, when I looked at the data, I realized it's not just about pay. And so I looked at a bunch of different resources, but this was kind of the one that stood out the most in just trying to find out, what do employees want? And so this is from a Deloitte 2022 survey. Not ironically, the 2023 survey came out this morning. And so we will also send a copy of that full report to you if you're interested. And basically is asking Gen Z and millennials questions about what they want in work. And for those of you who were not clear on the age ranges, I know I had to look them up. Gen Z are considered people that are up to the age of 26, and millennials are between the ages of 27 and 42 today. So those are kind of the age ranges here. So when they ask people, what do you want? Ironically, pay was not at the top of the list. People want good work-life balance, and they want learning and development opportunities before a high salary or financial benefits. The flip side of this is when you ask people why they left their job, looking there to the right, they leave their jobs because they say the pay wasn't high enough. They felt the job was detrimental to their mental health, or they were burned out. And burnout was something that came out in the 2023 survey this morning that I'll send to you all. When you look at the bottom, why did you choose your new jobs? Interestingly, it's not because of pay. It's because of good work-life balance and learning and development opportunities. And so what this says to me is, if the pay is equal, I'm leaving a job and I say it's because pay isn't high enough. But if I'm going to be paid the same amount and I have better work-life balance and better learning and development opportunities, I'm going to move to a new job. So that was kind of the summary there. There were tons of other parts of this that were really, really interesting to look at. And just looking at generational differences and what people care about as they're looking to jobs, things like climate change, mental health, came up over and over again. And so again, I'll send that survey to you and you can download it and look at it on your own after the fact. So what is the industry doing? Well, there are some efforts out there that are starting to pop up to meet this sort of industry-wide problem. PHTA launched this site. It's still, to my knowledge, still in development, but it's the Work in Aquatics. And basically they're touting this as a way to start a career with a competitive salary and no educational debt. So come and get into the industry. You don't have to go to vocational school and pay for vocational school, and you can get paid while you're doing it. And this is a way for them to match mentors with people who are looking to get into the pool industry. And you can see across the top there, they've got different job resources and articles and advice. There aren't a ton of jobs posted on here yet, although it does look like there are jobs being posted on Indeed. I looked a couple weeks ago and there were about 25,000 pool service industry related jobs that were posted on Indeed. So definitely high demand out there. And it looks like the industry is trying to make some strides in trying to match people who are looking for jobs with people who are hiring. So let's talk about finding and hiring employees. And this is where I'm going to lean on my panelists here. Again, if you'd like to send us a question, if you're coming in late, feel free to use that Q&A box, and we would love to get to your questions here. And without further ado, we'll just kind of get right into it. And I'll ask this question to my panelists. How are you finding prospective employees? And we'll start with you, Eric.
I only have a few places. I mean, mostly it's word of mouth. That tends to lead to solid employees. In fact, one of my most solid employees came from another pool company who couldn't absorb them, and they've been fantastic. So word of mouth is always powerful, just like with our service company as well. If a client refers you by word of mouth, you're probably going to get that account. So word of mouth, and then friends of employees. You know, I have a couple of technicians who were friends outside of the company, and they all came in as all friends and employees of my company. And then, of course, you know, if those two aren't available, then I resort to things like Facebook and Indeed as well.
What about you, Bryce?
So I do pretty much the same thing. You know, my first line of defense is usually, you know, the people, the friends and family of my all-stars. You know, their friends and family are usually going to be people that are of equal performance, right? And eventually, when you kind of tap out of those options and you've done your posts in like your social networks and things like that, the next thing I like to do is actually kind of poaching people from, you know, my own my old life, you know, in the restaurant community. I know that a lot of those people in the restaurant community, like your general managers, they're hard workers, they're top performers, and the career path that they're on is kind of not nearly as bright as the pool industry can be. So I definitely recommend checking out those people. You go to I like to go to like what I call like a QSR, you know, places that are a little bit higher end, but still kind of quick service. Those managers tend to be overworked and underpaid, and they're ripe for the pool industry. So pretty easy to pick them up.
How do you sell them on that, Bryce? Just out of curiosity, like these are people who are working like in restaurants and indoor air conditioned spaces in the Phoenix area. How do you sell them on switching industries altogether?
Yeah, I'll tell you what, it's a lot cooler outside than it is at that grill. So it's usually pretty easy for us to tell them, you know, it's like, hey, how would you like to work less hours, get paid more, and not deal with any of this stuff that you've got going on anymore? You'll find it pretty easy to convince them to at least give it a shot, to do a ride along and find out if it's the right path for them.
Yeah, we've got a couple questions coming in regarding this topic. Sean Finnerty is asking, is there a trend that's changing with regards to hiring? Are more companies looking to hire W-2 employees or 1099 employees? And I think that kind of dovetails into a larger conversation, Bryce, that we had yesterday. Is that something you want to talk about?
Sure. You know, it might have some bad news for people, in my opinion, but I think that hiring, you know, the way that most people utilize 1099s is not legal. You're breaking tax laws if you're requiring them to do things like wear uniforms. If you're, you know, if you're providing all the tools, if they're not able to work for other companies, that person is a W-2 and you could be liable for back taxes. So I think that there are definitely positions. You know, I actually have, you know, 1099 people that work for me, but they're people that have their own company. They work for other pool companies, and I hire them just for larger installation jobs and things like that. But I think that most of the time when we're talking about hiring people for 1099 positions, those aren't legitimate positions, and you should be pushing yourself to get everyone enrolled with a W-2. Not only for legal reasons, but also you're going to be able to provide more for them, like in terms of benefits and other things like that.
I 100% agree with him.
So what do you look for in potential employees? What are the characteristics that you're looking for? And Bryce, you can go first on this one.
So the number one thing that I'm always looking for is just the right attitude. in like the restaurant, and I think in the military too, they talk about people who are able to embrace the suck. It's like when you're up against a particularly bad day, you're able just to embrace it and push through. That's the attitude that I'm looking for. I always say that you can train everything except for the attitude, so you have to hire the right attitude.
Right. And what about you, Eric?
Good attitude is a very important thing. Clean cut, speaks intelligently and self-motivated. I think those are all important, and everything else is coachable. And then, for that in-person situation, firm handshake and eye contact is very important. That goes a long way with me when I'm interviewing someone in person.
And I've got another question here that popped up prematurely. Do you run background checks or drug tests on your employees? And if so, why or why not, Eric?
So I don't do a formal background check. I'll check all the jail sites and see if they've been arrested or anything like that and what the charge was. But I'm a little different because I feel like the judicial system is a little, once you get in that criminal system, you're sort of scarred for life as far as the eyes of an employer. So I actually enjoy giving people with records an opportunity to show through, because I believe the past is the past. And then, of course, my auto insurance runs an MVR on the drivers to make sure they're good for our policy.
What about you, Bryce?
Yeah, pretty similar. I wouldn't say that I necessarily run a background check, but I do check references, and I'm pretty thorough about that. I'm going to reach out to old employers and talk to them about what they're able to talk to me about. And we don't currently do drug testing, but that might be something we consider in the future. But Arizona is a little bit more lax on some of those drug uses. So
yeah, if I had a drug test people, I probably wouldn't have any employees. No, just kidding there. But simply just going on Facebook.
Are you though, Eric? Are you kidding?
I plead the fifth. But going to their Facebook, you can see a lot about the person and how they are and stuff like that. So that's another way you can measure how they'd work for you.
That's great. And this is an interesting one that might dovetail into the W-2 1099 conversation, but what do you offer as part of your hiring package? We'll start with you, Eric.
So, as far as perks go, we offer take-home trucks, company card. That way you don't have to worry about, going to an office and getting gas cards or anything like that. We essentially provide mostly a full wardrobe. So we do long sleeve shirts, short sleeve shirts, tail hats, ball caps, beanies, rain gear, cold weather gear, Riptide vacuum system to take home as well to charge. Basically give you all the tools to survive any situation. And like Bryce was saying, embrace the suck on those tough days. You got the gear to get through. There's tons of commissionable opportunities with my company, which I could go into further later. We do a lot of team outings. I like taking them to like a ball game or do other things like personalized type of perks like golf memberships or gym memberships, or one person even has a sailing membership. We have a sailing club close to us and they utilize that as their personal perk.
What do you offer? That's a pretty nice package. What do you offer to your employees when you bring them on? How do you sell them on the job, Bryce?
So the main point that I'm always bringing is just that work-life balance. We work with a four-day work week for all of my techs, and they're just able to know that they're going to work their day. They have their set schedules, and they can go home afterwards. They're not having to worry so much about calls in their off time. That's a big perk for a lot of them. Like I said, a lot of my team is ex general managers of restaurants, and so they're used to those calls, and just knowing that they're going to complete their work and not get a call is quite the benefit. We do also pay for full health benefits, vision, dental, that we're able to offer for our team, and just kind of having the right culture, I think, is a big part of it too. I think, in that last slide that we were on, I know you just kind of took it from them, but their little bar charts are kind of misleading if you look at them. I was noticing that it's like it says 39% of the millennials like to have that work-life balance, but the way that the bars are structured is it looks like it's almost equal to everything else, and it's not. It's almost 30% more than anything else that people were looking for. So that work-life balance is incredibly valuable for a lot of people in the younger age ranges.
Talk to us a little bit about how you structure your 4-day work weeks. Is it everybody gets Friday off, or is it up to the employee? And how do you handle sort of emergency or work that may show up on those days where there's people off work?
So what I'm saying is that each person has like a set schedule that they're going to work, and the day that they get off, it might, it's going to range from route to route. So, some of my employees are really just one of my employees gets Fridays off. A lot of other people either get Mondays or Wednesdays, which are my slower days. So, we kind of build that into the schedule. When they're hired, if we end up having to change their schedule, something like that, they're not guaranteed a specific day off. And then as far as like emergency work, we usually have enough coverage on the other days that it shouldn't affect anybody. But if they do need to work more, then they'll also get paid more. I see someone in the Q&A just asking if we pay 100% of the premiums, and yes, we do pay 100% of the full health benefits.
We were talking about those amounts. I don't know if you're comfortable with sharing those here, but from what I gathered from you, I think it's comfortable to say that those run about a couple $100, give or take, per employee per month. That sound about right?
Yeah, exactly. I would say like as an kind of a range, it's like $200 to $600, depending on that person's health conditions and things like that. And that's just something that we can pretty easily work into their workload. So that their health is as important to you as it is to them. Well, maybe not exactly, but you know what I mean. You want your team to be healthy and to be able to keep working and not having to take sick days or little leave of absence.
And I'll thank Hannah here for your comment. She said, be very careful. It is recommended to run a background check, as you can only discriminate on candidates based on the time, can't be more than 7 years old, and the nature of the charge. Whether or not the candidate's charge will affect ability to do charge. She's an HR manager, so thank you for that HR pro tip there, Hannah. And then Carl's asking if either of you have implemented an employee referral program to encourage current employees to recruit, and if so, how do you structure it?
So go ahead, Bryce.
I was going to say that we don't necessarily do that, but what we do is provide a workplace that people want their friends and family to work for. So that tends to help, fulfill those leads anyway. They want their friends and family to be happy, and they're going to send them our way.
Yeah, and I echo what Bryce. Yeah, I echo what Bryce says. I mean, I've tossed the idea around numerous times about doing that and offering an incentive like that, but I truly want to create an environment where people want to work, not because they're getting paid to do so. Well, you know what I mean, paid in addition to their normal pay.
I will say, Carl, we did ask this question as part of a survey that we'll cover later, and we do have a respondent who said they pay out a hiring bonus, but it's paid out over 12 months. So I think you're onto something there. You could do a bonus on hire, but you can also structure it as a time-based thing. And it sounds like the time-based, at least for this individual, seemed to work out better to pay it out over a while. That way you don't have someone get the bonus and then leave. All right. Training and measuring employees. Tell us about your training process. And Bryce, you've got a pretty nailed down training process. So I'm gonna direct this one at you.
Yeah. So in my old career, I was actually like a training manager, so that was something that was important to us. So I have a 2-week process where it's ride-alongs basically the entire time, and each day has a specific focus. When I say 2 weeks, of course, that's 2 4-day weeks. It's only 8 days of hands-on training, and then persistent training after the fact. So, yeah, that's.
I did notice too, in looking at training processes from survey responses, it did vary. It was, let me team you up with my best tech for a week, and then you can kind of come with me for 2 weeks, or you're just going to come with me for 2 weeks. So I did see a lot of variability in terms of training structure. How do you handle it, Eric?
Basically what you're just talking about. I let the person, well, first they ride along to see if they're interested in the job before they get hired. And then if they are, once they are hired, they do ride with numerous techs. There's no set timeline for when they're going to go out on their own. I want them to be comfortable, and they just keep riding with techs until they approach me and say, hey, I'm ready to go out on my own. I've had some technicians take 3, 4, 5 months to get ready till they feel comfortable, but I rather them be comfortable than throw them to the wolves and them cause issues or get burnt out or just get frustrated and want to leave.
And when after you kind of onboarded someone, how are you using Skimmer to make sure that they are delivering quality service? You've done some cool things with reporting, Eric. Tell us about that.
Yeah, I mean, the thing I really like about Skimmer is it keeps a running history of the chemical dosing, so you can figure out, are they spending too much of your money at pools that aren't needed? Like, are the chemicals way out of whack? Are they costing extra because they're not keeping stabilizer in the pool and the chlorine's burning off? So there's a bunch of different things that allows us to do. And then, in addition to, we're able to monitor the costs of each pool, so we know if we're profitable and need to know if they need to be increased or let go entirely. So, I mean, the stuff that Skimmer offers in the software is really cool and really lets you get a good grip on how your pool accounts are and how the employees are treating the pools.
What are you keeping an eye on, Bryce, as far as reporting?
We do something similar, by utilizing the exports. I like to check for 0 chlorine readings, making sure that things are being dosed correctly. And, if we're routinely finding a 0, that pool's going to end up with some algae. So we want to be on top of that, as well as just checking the photos and the notes to make sure we keep on top of the repairs for our technicians.
Next question,
Yeah.
How do you help employees improve when they're falling short? Bryce, I'll direct it one at you.
I like to get started just by saying, it's part of our culture that we're not really like I would call it like a gotcha community. Again, going back to the restaurants, it felt like inspections were sent out there with the purpose of finding out what you're not doing right to, basically to punish you. And that kind of creates definitely like a hostile workplace. So it's really important that you don't do that, that you take time. When you find something that's wrong, you treat it as a training opportunity and not as a failure on the employee's part. It's more as a failure on your part. You didn't train them about why they need to do something appropriately, and you need to correct your own failure rather than treating it like the employee who's in the wrong. And of course, that's for the first time issue. If it's a repeat offender, that's going to definitely change the attitude that you might have. But having that action will make it so that they're definitely more interested in hearing your calls and hearing about what their suggestions are to improve, that they're not feeling like they're being attacked all the time.
And I do see a number of questions coming in. We will absolutely try to get to those here in a second. When do you know that it's time to terminate an employee, and are you backfilling that person before terminating them? Eric, I'll let you go first on this one.
Yeah, I mean, I always try to keep a floater on staff. So if there is a staffing change that needs to be made, we can make it and not automatically put ourselves behind. It's we have a documentation system, basically a point system where, if they're rack up a certain amount of points, then it could be a time to terminate because they're not showing the dedication to the company by trying to correct themselves. If they keep falling behind and whatever it may be, not showing up or no call, no shows or anything like that, then, at the end of the day, we need to be consistent for our clients. And at that point, we might need to make a staffing change.
And what about you, Bryce?
You know what? I'm absolutely awful at that. I tend to try to let people make up for things far too long. What for me, it's definitely a sign that it's gone too far. But when it's starting to affect the other technicians, when they're getting annoyed at somebody, that's definitely a sign that it's time to let them go. But also, that I would be much better off if I was identifying those issues before it started to kind of affect the other team members. But that's a definite time where I know it's time to move on.
We've got a couple questions here, and maybe this is kind of going back to the last section, but in terms of, on that on that note of keeping techs happy, it sounds like there are quite a few questions just about health insurance. Like, at what point do you feel like, what size do you need to be able to feel comfortable providing that benefit to your employees? Do you have any guidelines on that, Bryce?
No. So to be blunt about it, in my time working with Skimmer to kind of help out other companies, I found that there's just a huge variation for what people are charging their customers, huge variations on how much work each technician is responsible for. I'd say, here in Arizona, my technicians do, 25 stops a day. Some of you hear that number and you think that's, impossible, but I'll tell you, they work 5-6 hours a day. It has to do with the pools, how clean they are, and how tight our routes are. It's a whole different world. But also, our rates tend to be a lot lower. I've talked to people in New Mexico who are able to charge $80 a week for pool service, and that's 3 or 4 times what we can charge in Arizona or probably in Florida. So it's definitely not an easy way for me to answer what you can afford. I will say that I like to base my employment, my labor goals, including everything that goes into it, at about 50% of our costs. So you can kind of do that math yourself. You can look at a percentage that you need to be willing to pay out, of your monthly revenue, and see when it's going to make sense to pay and to hire people to do that amount of work. So the short and simple answer is, I have no idea when you'll be able to afford that, but if you take a look at your percentages, you can kind of decide what it is that you can afford, and hopefully that'll direct you as to when you'll be able to afford that for your team.
And Terry asked who your insurance carrier is, because it's incredible that you can provide this benefit. You and I talked about that yesterday. What we discovered is that brokerages are offering, a lot of them are very state specific. So we could give you a name, but even amongst similar carriers, the plans are going to vary widely from state to state. So I think step one, if you are interested, is to maybe ask friends and family if they know an insurance broker, and maybe interview a couple different insurance brokers and see what kind of packages are available depending on the number of employees you have and your employee demographics.
Yeah, I was really surprised. I expected it to be much more expensive, but I found that if you hire the broker, they can give you rough estimates based off of just the age of your technicians. It's like they're able to go through and give you rough numbers for what everyone would charge, and that'll at least help you decide if it's affordable, if you can move forward and get real quotes, or if it's not quite in the budget yet.
Awesome. Thank you for those questions too. Those are great questions. Retaining and incentivizing employees. All right. How do you keep your teams motivated, guys? And Eric, I'll let you go first on this one.
Yeah, so we recently implemented a new tier system for our technicians. So, just coming to the company, you start as a level 1 technician, and then, that's a certain pay scale. And then after year 2, you qualify to be a level 2 technician. That's an upgraded pay scale. And then after certain, I believe it's 3 or 5 years, I forget on top of my head, but you get up to a level 3 technician, which is a higher pay scale. So it gives them clear and concise, hey, I can get to new level and get higher pay. And then of course you can get increases in between those 2 tiers, but it gives them something to work towards and stay with the company, because that way you're making more money there. And then also, as Bryce and we alluded to earlier, that work-life balance, it's similarly with him. My techs can sort of choose what they want to do, as far as they want everything on 4 days and have Friday off. I have some techs that have a very light Friday, and then I got one, I believe, that has the entire Friday off. So at the end of the day, letting them sort of choose their schedule, in addition to having that structured system, it really motivates them to keep going and keep providing good work.
Yeah, and there's not a ton of industries where you may be able to have that flexibility. So I think that's a definite, a definite plus for this industry, where if you can structure it that way and you can give people that work-life balance, that's a good carrot to convince someone to come over to the pool industry.
Yeah, in fact, the 2 phone interviews I had today, I literally said, we really believe in work-life balance because it is important. A lot of the companies around, from what I've gathered, just run them into the ground, and that's just no way to be. I wouldn't want to run a family member in the ground, and that's how I see my employees. So that's super important.
Bryce, any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I echo pretty much everything that Eric said, but the only thing I would add to it is I like to do little competitions among my team. Little things that can just make it a little bit fun throughout the week. Especially, yesterday we had a bad windstorm, so we'll probably we have we use Slack among our team, and we have a channel that's called Destroyed Pools. It's like whenever you walk into a yard and the pool is just an absolute wreck, you're going to be there a long time. So that the technicians will upload the photos so they can kind of commiserate with each other. But also, every now and then we'll kind of give a reward to someone who had the worst pool in a period, a $50 gift card or something. It turns something that's kind of, a real big negative when you walk into a yard and it's going to be a ton of work, kind of changes that into a little bit of a positive. It's like, hey, we get to at least joke around with it with the team, and then, maybe it'll result in a gift card in the end too.
And we've got a question from an anonymous attendee. How many pool techs do y'all have? Are you at liberty to say?
Yeah, I think I have 7 service technicians, and then a repair and preventative maintenance technicians too.
Yeah, I have 7. Yeah, I have 7 as well currently. And then I got a full-time repair technician, and then an office administrator, and then a field manager, and then of course my wife and myself.
And are you allowing your repair techs to choose their work days? Another question that came in.
It's a case-by-case basis, because it just depends on, like, are they having a lot of full pad installs and stuff like that, that could bleed over into other days. So if they have a lighter week, sure, they can, decide to get everything done in 4, but sometimes it's just not viable. And we hate working weekends, so we'll never have them working on the weekends. So
yeah, my repair technician actually does work 5 days, but that has to do more with his availability, and he wants to be able to be home when his son's out of school. So we work around that, and then
I think Bryce may have cut out there for a second. Bryce, are you there? We'll give him a second for his connection to reestablish.
But yeah, to echo what he was saying, though, my entire staff sort of, with the exception of myself, my wife, my field manager, and my office admin, everyone else sort of dictates their own day. If they want to get started super early, they can. If they want to go take a 2-hour lunch break during the day, they can. Just get the work done for the day, and you can basically govern yourself.
What are your vacation time or time off policies? You've got a pretty good structure, I think. Bryce, you want to share your structure?
Yeah, my team, the way that we work with our customers, we tell them that we're only going to service for 48 out of 52 weeks, and we charge a monthly flat rate. So 4 weeks of the year we take off. The whole team basically doesn't do service. Those are a week in March, a week in October, and then we also take off for Thanksgiving and Christmas weeks. And then after a full year of employment, I also let my technicians take a 5th week off, which they can kind of choose when that one will be. So they can have as much as 5 weeks off a year.
What about you, Eric?
I actually do a lot of the same that Bryce just mentioned. So we also say in our terms of service, we only do 48 visits a year out of the 52. We take off Christmas to New Year's and Thanksgiving. Christmas to New Year's is paid for automatically when you become an employee of my company. And then after year 2, you get the Thanksgiving week paid off as well. And then the employees can basically choose when they use the other 2 days off or weeks off if they want to. So and then we also offer PTO as well. So not only are they getting 2 paid weeks off, they're also getting PTO to accrue and use however they wish.
How are you paying your employees, Eric?
Depending on the position, it's either salary or pay per pool.
What about you, Bryce?
Pretty similar, but everybody is based on a salary, and then if they're a pool service technician, then it's based on a range of pools. Basically like a 5% either direction that it can grow or shrink.
And I would like to
Got it.
clarify, all my pool cleaning technicians are pay per pool, and then the other positions in the company are salary. So it's not legal to have some technicians salary and some technicians pay per pool. It's got to be the same.
Got it. What kind of team activities do you offer? And we kind of touched a little bit on this. We'll go through these. We kind of went through compensation. What kind of team things do you do with your teams?
One of the new things that we just started doing and I really like is that the last day of the month is the day that we do billing, like the last service day. So we try to get it done as quickly as possible so we can send out all that billing that same day without having my office manager work a crazy long day. So what we started doing is having everybody work together to get all of the pools done. If you finish your route early, you start backing up the next person. And after we're all done, we go out to lunch together. It's kind of cool. It's great to build some of that camaraderie, and it helps my office manager get that billing done a little bit faster.
What about you, Eric?
Yeah, so we try to do a lot of non-work related stuff together. We do ball games. I've even taken some of the people out to Daytona 500 one year, bowling, fishing, all kinds of things. I think we're actually trying to get a paddleboard event going for us to all go out and paddleboard. So we like to get together. I'd love to do paintball with them sometime, but I don't know if they'd all want to do that. But yeah, we just try to do a lot of stuff, community and family type stuff. And, I look at everyone like an extension of my family, not just a number or an employee. I want them to have fun as well.
And we've got a question here related to compensation and schedules. Do you see allowing your technicians to control their schedule being maintainable long-term when your business grows? I have 16 technicians and could not see this being an option for how I manage their schedules. Bryce, you want to take that one? Thanks for the question too, Stephen. It's a good one.
Yeah. So I think that you can give them options, and it doesn't necessarily have to be options that are incompatible with your business. In that situation that you're in, I probably would suggest offering them different, build a list of options that you're willing to give and let them pick maybe on a seniority basis. And that might help you get exactly to where the technicians are having options and making decisions on their schedule, but not leaving you shorthanded.
And David also has a great question. Do your pool techs that clean pools earn enough to support themselves, rent, groceries, personal car payments, etc., or is it more of a part-time thing for like college kids, or do they have spouses that also earn money?
You go ahead.
Yes, they can definitely pay for everything that they need to. This is a full-time position.
Yes, on my side, one of the first things I ask is, what do you need to be comfortable? In other words, monetarily, and I work a lot off of that as well, as long as it fits in my pay structure. So, that's very important. I don't want my technicians or employees being strapped ever. So, I want them to thrive in life and use my company as a way to do so.
Yeah, same way.
I'll cite another page that I actually printed out from the 2023 Deloitte survey. Over half of Gen Z and millennials think it will become harder and impossible to ask for a raise. And this is especially the case for the women. There's a footnote here that says, despite deep financial concerns, the majority are hesitant to speak with their employers about raises or promotions, with about a quarter of Gen Zers and 13% of millennials planning to leave their employers in the next year, and pay being a top reason they leave. Employers risk losing talent if their employees don't feel comfortable coming to them first to discuss financial concerns, raises, or promotions. And this was, the concern about just being able to be able to afford basics is pretty widespread. We're looking at over 60% of Gen Zers and millennials thinking that buying a house is going to become harder or impossible. And it's affecting kind of inflation's affecting a lot of things. You know, people are less likely to start a family. They kind of are split on whether they think it's going to become impossible to get a promotion or not. So this seems to be a pretty systemic issue. And it's great to hear you, Eric, that you talk to your employees about these things freely, because it is a difficult conversation for some people to have.
Well,
And
I've
if
even
you know
gone
that-
as, oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
I said I've even gone as far as offering to make budgets for my employees. I'm a huge Dave Ramsey fan, so I hate debt, and I would give any type of coaching I can to them to make sure they're living within their means and getting what they want out of life and not going into debt to do so.
It's great. That's awesome. Those kinds of things, I think, go a long way for folks. All right. So with that portion, I know we've got some other questions here. Some of them are just around pay. I think that we've answered a lot of questions just around pay. Kareem has a great question. How many points or chances do you give people? I think this is going back when we were talking about terminating employees.
Yeah, you know, to go along with Bryce and how he said he sort of let stuff go, he kicked the can down the street before it becomes a major problem. I'm sort of the same way. Like, I'm very lenient and I like to see the best in people. So I also am not as strict as I should be. And I want everyone to do well and I want everyone to succeed. So I mean, it's as far as a definitive number of points or chances, I mean, I can't say, but I'm definitely there to try to keep them going.
Yeah. Bryce, same for you? You don't really have a point system or a strike system for employees before you terminate them. It's just kind of on a gut basis. Yes.
Yeah, it's important to have discussions and to, you know, kind of document the different issues that you have. But sometimes, you know, the reality is that some issues are, you know, things that need to be addressed more rapidly and more harshly than others. So it's not something I've developed. I've also, you know, since my time in the pool industry, I haven't really ever had to fire anybody. A lot of times it's pretty easy to let them make their own decisions that they need to leave, you know, if they're not happy working with us and they're not able to adapt to what we need.
Yeah, and I guess that brings up another point. I mean, when you start having kind of salaried employees, do you ever have to deal with workers, you know, worker benefits after the fact, unemployment benefits or things like that?
I'm sorry, the mic got chopped up. What'd you say?
Oh, I was asking Bryce, do you
Okay.
have to worry about when you have salaried employees? Do you have to work do you have to work with unemployment benefits and things kind of that can happen if you do fire an employee?
Yeah, definitely. But, you know, don't let that discourage you. Obviously, do your documentation and things like that. But you do pay for unemployment insurance. So, you know, if you're assuming you're paying your taxes and you're not illegally using 1099 employees, you're covered and you can do what's important to keep your business flowing.
Great. Alan has a question. What kind of team building activities do you do as a group, and do you include kids? You mentioned a few that you do, Eric, races, bowling, things like that. What about you, Bryce?
We usually will do like an after summer dinner, and, you know, people are invited to bring their families over. One thing though, I will say is that you kind of have to check with your team and make sure that that's something that they see as a value and it's not an invasion of their work-life balance. You know, sometimes it's like, oh, it's a mandatory lunch. That doesn't really sound like, you know, fun. You know, they would prefer to spend that time with their families. So you definitely want to walk that line there.
Yeah, in addition to that, like the ball game, for instance, some of my staff don't like baseball. So, you know, it's hard to find an activity that suits everyone, but all you can do is do your best. But I echo what Bryce says as well.
All right, so I'm going to go through, and please keep the questions coming. I want to go through a couple survey responses. We asked kind of along the same topics that we had discussed today, but we did it in survey form. And so there were some things that surfaced. What is your best tip for finding great talent? Networking came up over and over and over again. Use your network, have face-to-face conversations, work with your employees to find other employees. People love working with their friends. And Neil from CK Pools does offer referral bonuses to existing employees, and it's found success in that. And then as far as online recruiting goes, we saw a lot of Indeed.com and Michael from Magos at Pool and Scuba post publicly on Facebook. I hope I'm saying that right. If we looked at hiring, what are your best tips for hiring? Mike makes vehicles available, offers competitive pay. Brian from Polar Bear has significantly increased his salary range, and he says it costs me more in payroll, but it saves me so much in other ways. Setting expectations came up. Margot from Adams Pool Service and Nicholas from Sink or Swim both called out transparency and clearly describing the role and expectations. You know, when you're in it every day and you're trying to describe, you know, the role to somebody, or if you're not doing it every day, you may miss out some sort of crucial things. And so making sure to clearly define the job role and the expectations that come with that job role can save you some headaches down the line. And then there were some interesting ones about hiring assessments. There are a couple folks out there like Jordan from Blue Oasis says he uses a personality test that can help bring in talent. Neil uses a pre-hire assessment and then also includes situational interviews with complex questions. What do you do if you come across a green pool? And, you know, if you have someone that's new to the industry, they may not know, but it may be a good way to gauge to see if they're the type that is going to feel like they can ask questions instead of trying to guess. We have a comment here, GPS on trucks. Yay or nay?
Yes.
Yes, yeah, it's good for more reasons than checking in on your employee. It's also will help prevent, you know, thefts and other misuse as well. So plus,
thanks for that.
Yeah, depending on your insurance,
and plus what?
Depending on who you're insured with, it might actually help reduce your pricing. So
great. What are your best tips for training great talent? It's a lot of what we heard here. Team them up with the best techs and a prescribed period of ride-alongs or shadowing or hands-on training.
And
one
no
thing
pressure.
that came up quite a bit too, and no pressure, right? Patience came up quite a bit through almost all of our surveys. There was this emphasis point on making sure that all new techs are comfortable asking questions. And that is, I don't know why that is called out so much. It seems pretty obvious, but I do imagine that people have experience where they've asked questions and maybe they were made to feel like it wasn't a good question. It seems like the folks that are doing this right, and the folks at least that responded to our survey, want to make sure that people are comfortable asking questions, because let's be honest, none of us can know it all. Nick from Sink or Swim said pool training never ends. New equipment's always coming out and there's always something to learn for everyone. Isn't that the truth?
I learn every day.
Every day. And what is your best tip for rewarding great talent? It sounds silly, but verbal praise and recognition can go a long way. Brian from Polar Bear Pools likes to share copies of all compliments he receives from customers. So anytime he gets a good review or a compliment, he makes sure that everyone gets to see that good review or compliment amongst the team. Obviously, promotions and higher pay, having a way to promote people into higher paying opportunities. Gift cards and cash bonuses were incredibly popular. Financial rewards when least expected, surprise or spot bonuses came up a couple times, and good old fashioned cash. And then there were some, we alluded to this a little bit, but competitions. Nicholas from Sink or Swim said, we've started doing part selling competitions, tracking quantity and value of parts and rewarding 2 techs monthly with gift cards based on sales. This has drastically increased our sales. Gamification is kind of the term that we use in kind of tech circles to talk about reward and point-based systems. And, with millennials and Gen Zers coming up and playing games on phones, transferring that into the workplace is not a bad idea. And then unique rewards based on preference. Thomas from Integrity Pool says, find what each person wants. And I know you do this too, Eric, and you're big on creating customized recognition and rewards depending on who the person is.
Yep.
And what they want. How do you retain great talent? Again, some of the things that we talked about today, clearly defined career paths and financial incentives. Anil says that he offers bonuses for meeting rigid KPIs. And Anil, if you're here, definitely share what kind of KPIs you're measuring. I think that's super interesting. Annual pay increases and paying out the hiring bonus over 12 months. There were some responses around professional and personal growth. So not only professional skills and training and certifications, some people like to send their teams to a conference for training and for fun at least once a year, helping your employees grow. We all have dreams we're all trying to achieve, said Jordan from Blue Oasis. Treat them well, sure it goes without saying. Find out what each person wants. And I love this quote from Mike at Mako's Pools. He says, it's easier to replace a bad customer than a great tech. That's great. And last but not least, user-friendly tech, making everything as user-friendly for the tech as possible across the board while keeping them busy, productive, and making good money. And both of you, I know, have invested quite a bit in making sure that your techs have great tools. You were talking about, making sure everyone has a Riptide vacuum. Having the right tools goes a long way, and of course, we think Skimmer is a part of that too. We have a question about KPIs. What are KPIs? Or what type of key performance indicators? A way to basically track activity and behaviors into numbers and set goals against those numbers. I don't know what the specific KPIs were from Anil here, but if you're here, feel free to let us know. Speaking of user-friendly tech, look, this is what we're here to do. We want to help you be successful. Skimmer gives you unparalleled visibility into what's happening in the field. All the data that your techs are collecting in the field is stuff that you can analyze and use to keep an eye on what's happening in the field, spot problems before they become even bigger problems, and allow your techs to service more pulls faster. Bryce and I have covered this in a few different talks, but just the efficiency that you gain by being able to schedule out and make sure that you're taking the most efficient route from location to location, it adds up. That windshield time will kill your business. So keep your routes tight. Let your techs have the technology to get to more pulls faster. If and when you do have someone that calls in sick, we make it super easy to switch that route over to somebody else. Literally, you can do it in 2 minutes right from the app. You don't have to be logged into the dashboard on the computer. You can actually do it from your phone. We also help people get paid faster and improve cash flow. We had a question here about cash flow, and to the person who asked that question, I'm not sure who you are, but we did our last webinar was specifically around cash flow. Where do you spend your money? What do you invest in? What do you do before you prioritize something else? Like those are very big issues, and I would highly encourage you to check out that cash flow webinar because we brought in a member of the UT Austin faculty, an accounting professor, to share what he's learned. And then finally, allowing you to deliver quality at scale is what we're here to do. We know that people who own pool companies are typically experts at this, and you want, of course, your customers to get the same level of service that you yourself would provide from anyone on your team. And so we really, really want to help you be successful in doing that. As part of this, as a reminder, you will get a recording of today's webinar. I'm going to send you the Deloitte Gen Z and Millennial survey, which has some really, really great insight in it. And then we have this great new free guide, how to grow your pool tech team without sacrificing quality. That is something we're going to promote out on the web, but as an attendee of this webinar, we will go ahead and send that to you as part of our thank you email. And so thank you so much. If we have any other questions, we're just about over time. If you do have questions, you can stick around. Bryce and I will try to get to those in the chat. We'd love to hear from you regarding future webinar topics. So if there's something that you would like us to cover, feel free to let us know. And thank you all so much for your time today. Everybody say bye.
Yep. Thank you. And thanks so much, Eric.
Yeah, you too, Bryce, and you, Nikki, and thanks to everyone else for tuning in. And I really enjoyed it, and I look forward to being on future webinars.
And True Blue, that cash flow webinar and the raising prices webinar are both on our YouTube channel under pro content. But I have your name, and so I will go ahead and send you a link here. Thanks for asking. All right. Bye, everybody.
See you guys.